I never planned to say this. Not because it isn't true, but because truth has weight, and I don't speak heavy things casually. Some thoughts are meant to be carried quietly until they become clear enough to stand on their own. This one reached that point. You need to hear it. I didn't arrive here through emotion alone. Emotion fluctuates, it reacts, it amplifies. What brought me here was something more reliable: observation. Time. Patterns repeating without effort. The kind of understanding that doesn't rush to announce itself. I noticed how this stayed with me even when nothing was happening. No conversation driving it, no moment reinforcing it, just presence, consistent and unforced. That's when I realized this wasn't a feeling asking for attention. It was a truth asking for acknowledgement. I never planned to say this because I don't speak to feel silence. I speak when silence has done its work. Silence reveals what matters. It strips away noise and leaves only what can survive without reinforcement. This survive. I paid attention to how my thoughts behaved around you. They didn't spiral. They didn't seek reassurance. They didn't negotiate outcomes. They aligned. Alignment is rare. When something aligns, it doesn't compete with the rest of your life. It integrates into it. That integration changed how I moved. I didn't feel the need to accelerate anything. I didn't feel pressure to define or secure. I felt calm. Calm isn't hesitation. Calm is confidence without urgency. It's knowing something doesn't need to be rushed to be real. I never planned to say this because I respect timing. Saying something before it's ready damages it. But not saying it once it's ready does the same. There's a moment when clarity requires action, not forceful action, but honest expression. This is that moment. You need to hear that. I didn't imagine this. I observed it. I watched how consistency replaced intensity, how steadiness replaced excitement, how understanding replaced interpretation. Those shifts don't happen accidentally. They happen when something fits. I noticed I didn't need to manage my energy around you. I didn't adjust pace or tone to maintain balance. Things stayed balanced on their own. That told me this wasn't effort-based connection, it was structure-based. Structure lasts. I also noticed what didn't appear. No emotional spikes. No cycles of closeness followed by withdrawal. No need to read between lines. Absence of instability is information. It's valuable information. I never planned to say this because I don't make declarations to feel something. I make them to reflect something that already exists. This isn't a beginning, it's recognition. Recognition changes responsibility. Once you recognize something real, you have a responsibility to treat it honestly. Ignoring it doesn't preserve it, it distorts it. I don't distort what matters. I realize that my standards recalibrated quietly. Things that once seemed acceptable started feeling unnecessary. Not because they were bad, but because they weren't aligned. Alignment simplifies choice. Choice became easier. I never planned to say this because I don't want to create pressure. Pressure creates false agreement. I want clarity to arrive freely, not extracted through expectation. This isn't about reaction, it's about truth. Truth doesn't demand applause. It stands, you need to hear that what I feel isn't built on urgency or fear. It's built on stability. Stability that remained even when I stopped paying attention to it. Stability that didn't ask to be protected or defended. That kind of stability is rare. I noticed that silence didn't feel like distance. Space didn't feel like loss. Time didn't feel like a threat. When those things stop feeling dangerous, you know something has changed internally. Something did. I never planned to say this because I value restraint. Restraint isn't absence, it's control. Control allows precision. Precision prevents regret. I wanted this to be precise, so here it is. You need to hear that this wasn't impulsive. It wasn't reactive. It wasn't influenced by a single moment. It was formed by many quiet confirmations that all pointed in the same direction. That direction didn't shift. I realized that I wasn't looking ahead to escape the present. I was comfortable where things were. Comfort without complacency is a strong signal. It means something is stable but still alive. Alive without chaos. I never planned to say this because I don't want to overstate what doesn't need exaggeration. Exaggeration weakens truth. Simplicity strengthens it. So I'll say it simply. What I feel is real because it remained when I wasn't trying to feel anything. It stayed when attention moved elsewhere. It held its shape without reinforcement. That's how I know. You need to hear this not because it changes everything immediately, but because it clarifies everything quietly. Clarity is the foundation of any decision that matters. I'm not asking for an answer right now. I'm offering honesty. Honest placement of something that deserved to be said once it became undeniable. Undeniable doesn't mean dramatic, it means consistent. If you're listening to this and feeling calm instead of rushed, that's intentional. Rush creates mistakes. Calm creates accuracy. And if this message resonated with you, if you value clarity, patience, and truth that doesn't need noise, take a moment to like this video. If you appreciate thoughtful conversations built on long-term thinking, subscribe. And if something here felt personal, leave a comment, even a simple one. Progress matters. Clarity matters. Saying the right thing at the right time matters. And sometimes what you never planned to say is exactly what needs to be heard. I never planned to say this. And this part explains why the words waited as long as they did. Not because I was unsure, but because I was attentive. There's a difference. Uncertainty creates noise. Attention creates understanding. I wanted understanding to finish its work before I spoke. What followed the realization wasn't urgency, it was observation. I watched how this truth behaved when I wasn't engaging it. I watched what happened when life became busy, when focus shifted elsewhere, when days passed without emphasis. It didn't weaken, it didn't fade into the background. It stayed intact, unchanged by neglect. That matters. I notice how my internal state remains steady. No emotional pull, no anxiety about outcome, no impulse to secure anything. When something is real, it doesn't ask to be held constantly. It holds itself. I also notice how clarity didn't demand expression. It didn't need to be spoken to feel valid. It simply informed decisions quietly. I chose differently without needing to explain why. My standards recalibrated on their own. That's when I knew silence had done its job. I never planned to say this because I didn't want the words to lead the truth. I wanted the truth to lead the words. Words spoken too early often end up carrying expectations they weren't meant to carry. I didn't want expectation. I wanted accuracy. Accuracy requires patience. I paid attention to how this truth interacted with time. Time usually erodes feelings that aren't grounded. It didn't erode this, it clarified it. Clarity doesn't rush to speak. It waits until doubt has exhausted itself. Doubt never arrived. I noticed that I wasn't negotiating with myself. I wasn't listing pros and cons. I wasn't weighing possibilities. That absence of internal debate told me something important. This wasn't a decision being made. It was a recognition being acknowledged. Recognition changes responsibility. Once you recognize something true, you're responsible for how you treat it. Avoiding it doesn't protect it. Ignoring it doesn't preserve it. It distorts it. I won't distort what matters. I never planned to say this because I respect the impact words can have. Words shift dynamics, they invite interpretation, they create gravity. I didn't want gravity before structure existed to support it. Structure exists now. I also noticed how my behavior didn't change to accommodate this truth. It didn't make me less disciplined. It didn't distract me. It didn't pull me out of rhythm. It integrated seamlessly. Integration is a sign of alignment. Alignment doesn't disrupt. I observed how silence between us didn't accumulate meaning. It didn't create stories or assumptions. It remained neutral. Neutrality in silence is rare. It means trust exists beneath it. Trust doesn't announce itself. It operates. I never planned to say this because I didn't want to convert clarity into pressure. Pressure distorts good understanding. I wanted whatever followed to remain voluntary, not reactive. This is voluntary. I also noticed that I didn't need reassurance. I didn't need confirmation. I didn't need feedback to maintain confidence. That independence told me this wasn't attachment driven by need. Need creates urgency. Choice creates steadiness. I never planned to say this because I didn't want emotion to speak louder than reality. Emotion can convince. Reality proves. Proof had accumulated quietly, without performance. Performance wasn't needed. I paid attention to what didn't happen. No escalation. No dramatization. No turn pull toward declaration. That restraint wasn't suppression, it was precision. Precision is respect. I noticed how my perception sharpened instead of narrowed. I didn't idealize. I didn't filter. I saw clearly. Clear vision doesn't rush to speak. It waits until language can match it. Language caught up. I never planned to say this because I don't believe truth needs constant exposure. Overexposure weakens it. I wanted this to remain intact before it was named. Naming changes context. And now context is ready, you need to hear this. Not because something is about to happen, but because something already has. Understanding has completed its work. Silence has finished refining it. This isn't an opening move. It's a confirmation. I'm not asking you to respond. I'm not asking you to mirror anything. I'm offering transparency, placing something where it belongs, instead of leaving it unspoken. Unspoken truth accumulates weight. Spoken truth releases it. I had a plan to say this because I don't speak to provoke action. I speak to establish reality. Reality doesn't need agreement to exist. It needs acknowledgement. I also want you to know that nothing changes if nothing changes if nothing changes. This truth doesn't demand movement. It doesn't require acceleration. It simply sits where it is, informing choices quietly. Quiet influence lasts. I never planned to say this because I wanted certainty without dependency. I have that now. That's why the words can stand on their own without needing support. They don't need to persuade. You need to hear this because clarity deserves honesty. Because what's real should be treated with accuracy, not avoidance. And if you're listening to this and recognizing the moment when silence has done all it can do, you understand exactly why this is being said now. If this part resonated with you, if you value patience, clarity, and truth that doesn't rush, take a moment to like this video. If you appreciate conversations built on long-term thinking and precision, subscribe. And if something here reflected your own experience, leave a comment, even a simple one. Some things aren't said when they're felt. They're said when they're understood. I never planned to say this, and this part is about what became clear once the truth stopped feeling personal and started feeling structural. That's an important shift. Personal truths depend on emotion. Structural truths depend on consistency. Once something becomes structural, it influences how you move without asking for attention. That's what happened here. I noticed that this understanding didn't sit in my emotions. It settled into my decisions. I didn't think about it often, but it showed up everywhere. And how I planned, and how I prioritized, and how I chose what deserved my energy and what didn't. That kind of influence doesn't come from a passing feeling. It comes from alignment. I paid attention to how nothing here required maintenance. I wasn't reinforcing it with thought or revisiting it for reassurance. It existed without supervision. When something holds without management, you stop checking on it. You trust it. Trust doesn't announce itself. It reorganizes you quietly. I also noticed how clarity didn't narrow my world. It expanded it.